that. All right, quick mention as far as setup is concerned. SGX Nifty is up by 1%. Let's get a perspective as far as our markets are concerned. Dhananjay Sinha, co-head for institution research, economist and strategist at Emkay Global Financial Services, is joining us this morning. Dhananjay, just a quick word, because we're counting down to the pre-open as well. How do you believe the markets are going to be reacting? Because we already seen a reaction on the US front. European markets were up almost 1.5% as well. How do you think this will actually impact the emerging markets when we talk about the ECB's QE?
Yeah, I think QE has been somewhat bigger. I mean, slightly bigger than what was expected, and by and large, it adds to the liquidity flow in the global economy. That would neutralize the kind of withdrawal of QEs that Fed has done earlier on. So I think partly it can be neutralized. So by and large, I would assume that the market could actually take this positively. I've seen that in the Europe and also in the US. So all the advanced economies have actually been positive after the announcement of the QE that ECB announced yesterday, and Asia is also up. So I think it is likely that from that standpoint, emerging markets might actually look positive in the near term. One is not very sure how much of what ECB has done would translate into recovery in the European area, but in the short term, it does appear that the market would actually take this as a positive fillip.
All right, then just hold that thought. Let's get a quick mention on the way the pre-open's really been panning out, and the currency. Take a look at that. 61.43 is what we're tracking as far as the rupee is concerned. Clearly, that's the big Q as well on the back of what we saw from the ECB. Sensex and Nifty both seeing a little bit of a spike up, 48, 49 points up on the Nifty. Sensex 87, 88 points. Anu's been tracking the currency action as well. Anu, clearly 61.42. This is a clear reaction to what's happening in the globe.
1 week high. We're back to the 1 week high on the rupee dollar equation. But I think the bigger one to watch out today will be the rupee euro equation. We are the second best performing currency in Asia right now versus the euro. We're up a whopping 0.5% in just starting trade this morning in the rupee euro. So a lot of the companies that are based and getting revenues from Europe will be watching that one closely as well. The big question, will this level remain? Because at 61.40 we have seen PSU banks historically get very active over the last 1 week. So whether we can actually defend this level or not will be the one to watch out for. Mahindra Jhaju on the phone line with us. Morning, Mahindra. Thanks for joining in. Fresh new morning, fresh new money coming in from the ECB as well. A big appreciation. Do you think we'll hold on to it? Against the euro, I have no doubt that we will. But against the dollar, do you think at some point the PSU banks are going to kick in?
Well, I think it is the RBI's stated policy to moderate volatility. So I think we will see intervention from the Reserve Bank and from the PSU banks from time to time. But that wouldn't change the direction, because unlike the last time when the US did the QE, we were running a huge current account deficit and the high oil and commodity prices. So there was a negative impact on rupee. This time we are in a very strong position. There is the local development and reforms. At the same time, the commodity prices have fallen. So rupee is obviously in an upswing. And we are now expecting a lot of flows. The last quarter is traditionally supportive for rupee. So I think, yes, we saw some intervention yesterday from the banks, but today the tide is just too strong. So I think the rupee may find a little more support and may go closer to 61.25 during the day.
All right, thanks for that, Mahindra. In fact, companies like Suzlon and Priyank will be glad, because come another 2 months, the rupee-euro equation is going to look a lot more different. So they would have got a lot lesser rupees for the euros they would have sold Senvion for. So much stronger against both those currency. What does it really mean for exports going ahead? That's going to be the big question.
All right, let's see how that really shapes up. Anu, thanks for those updates. But well, we've been in conversation with Dhananjay Sinha from Emkay Global Financial Services. Dhananjay, let's talk about the kind of impact this will actually have on India as well, because in one bit you're talking about the currency. That's something that you've commented and written in the past as well in some of your reports. So your view as to how this will really play out on the currency, and let's backtrack that to its implications for various sectors.
Yeah. So the thing is that if you look at the currency market, the dollar has continued to strengthen. Yep. And I think in the context that ECB increases supply of euro currency, I think the dollar will continue to strengthen going forward. We have to see whether the Fed starts increasing rates or not, or move towards some neutrality as far as monetary policy is concerned, I think if that, if you consider what Fed has said earlier, it does appear that dollar should actually strengthen further, and it is likely that euro, which is currently trading at 1.13, could actually weaken further. And over the next 1.5 years, as the euro supply continues to remain higher, it is likely that euro will continue to weaken going forward, even below 1.1. So in that context, if I look at emerging markets currency, typically a stronger dollar has translated into weaker emerging markets currency, and also weaker commodity prices. So what is happening today is that you have a strengthening of dollar against advanced countries, advanced currencies, and also you have commodities which are actually correcting on the back of stronger dollar. Whereas with respect to emerging markets, there is a certain amount of resilience. We also see that with respect to INR as well. Over a longer period of time, I would assume that if the dollar strength continues, rupee should also start realigning, and there could be weakening. And I think the strengthening of, if INR has to strengthen, it has to be on the back of rebound in domestic growth. If the domestic growth doesn't rebound, then rupee will weaken. So I think that's the context from the currency markets, and we have seen that over the last 4 years, while major central banks have actually been on the path of quantitative easing, if you consider Fed, if you consider ECB and BOJ, all of them have increased the base money. So in that context, rupee is actually weakened. So I'm sure. So what I'm basically looking at is whether the growth in India really rebounds as strongly or not. As of now, it doesn't appear, if you consider the underlying GDP growth or manufacturing sector or even the corporate performance. So in that context, one has to, I'm not really changing my view with respect to the sectors that I am overweight or underweight on. From a market standpoint, in the Indian context, what we are seeing is that the expectation on earnings have been tapered. So for FY15 and 16, the year started with growth of something like 17 to 20% growth in earnings for Nifty or Sensex. It does appear that as the earnings season is panning out over the last 3 quarters, there has been some reduction in the earnings estimates. So as a result of that, the multiples have kept on increasing with the buoyancy that is visible in the market. So I think we are actually into a new type of territory where the earnings growth is quite close to what was the 5-year average of about 8% or so, and the multiple hence has been expanding on the back of that. One has to really see how much of this continues. My sense is that the exuberance might actually perpetuate at least in the coming months, largely on the back of the fact that you have a budget which is there in end of February, and there is a lot of expectation from there as well. So I think the momentum might just continue. Fundamentally, things can still look fairly fragile. From the sector standpoint, I would say that we are fairly in the consumption space. If you look at it, we think that there is vulnerability in the rural space, and we have seen HUL, ITC, etc., and Mahindra Finance, which has basically shown that indication. Where we are more overweight urban consumption. In auto space, we are fairly selective. We have been overweight on things like Hero Motors, but we think at this juncture, something like Tata Motors would do better. We are kind of somewhat skeptical about Ashok Leyland. So there are selective plays. Investment themes are largely more export driven, so we like things like L&T and companies such as which have export exposure. Volta is another one that we have been liking. So I think those are the kind of flavor that we have been holding at this juncture.
All right, Dhananjay, fair enough. Thanks for joining us today and getting us the thoughts and perspective as far as the developments are concerned.